Ajith, welcome to Interesting Lives of Ordinary People. I'm going to just quickly, very briefly introduce who you are and how I know you. So, Ajith and I have known each other since we were at school. I think we were probably 16 at the time. We were at school together. And after that, we went our separate ways. And Ajith's had this stellar career in corporate banking, financial services. And more recently, he has segued into a much more creative career in music and acting. And I have to say that even when you were young, you definitely had that talent. I remember you singing beautifully. So it's this talent that you've nurtured, and it's a joy for us who've known you to watch you blossom in this way, and it's also very inspiring. So welcome today, Ajit. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Ro, and thank you for having me in your podcast.
So what I want to start with, Ajit, is ask you, because obviously where you are now is very different from where you were even maybe 5 years ago. I can't remember exactly when you pivoted. Um, and I'm pretty sure the seeds of that sort of evolution or transformation or whatever you want to call it were planted a little bit earlier than you actually made the move. So I'd love for you to maybe tell us a bit about that turning point or that event that actually made you think about your life a bit differently.
To answer that question, Ro, I have to go to the beginning. I come from the southern part of India, and it's normally typically tradition there for the kids to be taught something. I started learning singing from a fairly young age, Carnatic music. Then my brother, started learning mridangam. Then, even then, I guess I was a little competitive. So I said, look, if he's learning mridangam, even I would like to learn mridangam, which is a percussion instrument in South India. So I said, yeah, fine. So I started learning mridangam. And I formally trained in Carnatic music from maybe when I was 5, 6 years old till I
Mm.
was maybe 16 or 17. So anyway, and during the course of that, I was fairly talented, I think, because I did win quite a few prizes at the school level and all that. And the icing on the cake was, I got selected into the All India Radio Trivandrum as an artist. So I used to get called occasionally, and then for some light music, you prepare, you go one day earlier, then you sort of prepare something along with the accompanying artist, and the next day you are recording it live. And at that point in time, you didn't have Melodyne and auto tune and ability to cut and paste. You kind of perform, and it's recorded live. And if you make a mistake towards the latter part, then you have to go back and sort of redo the whole. It was interesting. So anyway, so that's where it all started. I guess art as a choice for a profession, I think, was never in the consideration. Uh, so maybe unluckily for me, I was also a studious student, and I was pretty good in academics.
Oh,
So
yes.
I cleared a few exams, and I got admission to BIS Pilani. Then it was like one way, Pilani, and then subsequent an MBA, and then I joined the banking sector with the ANZ Grindlays Bank, and then the journey continues to the corporate world. But through the course of that, I did keep in touch with music, not formally, but during parties. I mean, starting from Bits Pilani, where I kind of escaped getting ragged by, being singing the seniors' parties. So they used
Ah,
to yeah, call me for
so
them.
you were the entertainer
I
basically, and
mean,
they said, okay.
yeah, you just sit in a corner. We'll have a few drinks and all that, but you just keep singing. So and you can also join us. So that was good
Brilliant.
fun. But
Yes.
anyway, so the party singing continued, which whether it was Pilani or whether it was the professional world or whatever informal get-togethers at home, friends' place, singing the normal Bollywood, Hollywood songs and all. So all that continued.
So I think the sense I'm getting is that, obviously the corporate career was the logical, you couldn't really have pursued your art as a career because it probably wouldn't have given.
It is not even in consideration because frankly, and not even then, even now,
Yes.
making a mark in the professional, in the art space and earning a living, getting food on the table is
Yes.
extremely difficult when you compare that to the corporate world. You don't have to be brilliant to have a decent job in the corporate sector and earn a decent salary. You might not make your millions, but yeah, you earn a decent salary. You're happily sort of having a family. Your kids are happy. You can send them to decent school. All that is possible with
Yes.
a reasonable job in the corporate sector, which is not the case. Definitely not then, and probably not even now. You have to be uniquely brilliant and talented and super lucky to
Yes.
crack it in the art, and which is why I have huge respect for all the artists who are doing extremely well.
Absolutely. And I think what I wanted to maybe touch upon is the fact that in your corporate career, you travel to so many different countries, cities, you probably were experiencing different cultural norms and different ways in which people worked, etc. What did you what was your learning from that? Did it influence your way of living in any way?
Look, it's a blessing or an opportunity, really, if you have a chance to work in multiple geographies and multiple countries, because the cultures. So, as an example, in Cochin, of course, a couple of years in my early days in Grenada, and then in Saudi Arabia, which is at that point of time a completely different world.
Yes.
The culture is very different. The way you deal with people is very different. What is expected, what is accepted, what is not accepted is very different. Of course, Saudi is very different now. I mean, things have changed. But
Yeah.
then Saudi to Bahrain, and Bahrain was completely different from Saudi in many aspects. And then back to Calcutta in India, which is laid back, the club life, all that. But I guess work and the US is very different. And then even the kind of banks I worked with. So I worked with American banks mostly, but I also
Mm,
worked with the British bank. I also worked with the German bank, and the cultures are very different. I mean, it's very different in terms of how do you read messages, how do you sort of communicate.
absolutely.
Particularly the Brits, what is said might not necessarily be verbally said, but you have to read between the lines, take subtle hints.
Yeah.
With American, maybe it's more direct. But whatever. Again, none of these are generalizing. But the fact is, when you deal with multiple cultures, multiple geographies, it truly enhances your, I guess, your professional skills. And that's what sometimes frustrates me a lot when people, and maybe they have their own reasons, but people are reluctant to move, right? For what
Mm.
reason? From even one city to another city, which might be just 200 miles or 200 kilometers away. But there is a reluctance,
Oh
which,
gosh, yes, I can totally imagine because you're in your comfort zone and everything is familiar. You
yeah.
know who your people are, and then to go into a different place, you got to start again. But what I love about your and I'm sort of connecting it with what you told me about your childhood, that competitiveness and your brother did the mridangam and you decided you wanted to do it. And it sort of gives me a glimpse of someone who's quite happy to put himself out there to start afresh and maybe to some extent even be able to shape shift in terms of what's needed to
Yeah.
to compete and to do well in that situation. Would you say that's an accurate-ish?
No, no, I would definitely say, see, my view, and it is my personal view, is the way you get ahead, in any aspect of what you do, is an opportunity presenting itself and your ability to take that opportunity. Then, of course, luck plays a part in terms of how well you do and all of that. But it's happened multiple times. In Saudi Arabia, I'll give you an example. So, Saudi, where I did very well. The branch was doing very well in Cochin. And then one fine day in the evening, I get a call from the chief manager of South India. He says, "Look, Ajith, we have an opening in Saudi Arabia for this. Are you interested?" So I said, "Look, bold of the blue." I said, "Look, give me some days to think about it. Then you have till tomorrow morning. Get back to me tomorrow morning, yes or no, and we'll take it from there. That's all." And I thought about it, spoke to my parents, and spoke to Divya, my wife, who then at that point in time was my girlfriend. And then, yeah, everyone said okay, and then I said yes, and off I went. But this is just one example. But every other opportunity I took, be it a different role, or be it a different thing, and it has been a plunge, frankly, where I got into a space where I did not know much about, but hey, why not?
Love that. And I think I'm reminded of that book called Yes Man. Did you ever read that book or watch
No,
that
no,
film?
I'm not.
And it was basically about this guy who decides that, he's for, I think, I can't remember what period of time, that he was just going to say yes to everything, irrespective of how ridiculous the offer was. And
Yeah.
it's quite hilarious. But anyway, but I sort of, I see your, point of view there, that when you say yes to something, and you allow yourself to learn, you do find a way to deal with it, and it's actually really interesting. It's quite a different experience. And so has that been sort of your motto pretty much through life?
Yeah, it has been, and luckily for me, in most occasions I've succeeded. There have been cases where I failed. I mean, that's natural. But the successes have been more than the failure. So that
Yes.
has been pretty good. Luck also, I think, plays a part When you take a plunge, I think, well, my view is, look, when you go for something, it's a cliche saying the whole world, I guess, conspires to make sure that you succeed, kind of thing. So that's the
Absolutely.
view.
Yeah, I so believe in that, that it's kind of the energy you put into whatever
Yeah,
you're doing. And even though you don't know necessarily how you're being perceived, people feel it, people notice it, even on a sort of subliminal level. So I love that. Um, I want to just ask you about you mentioned your last role was the one where you decided, and I think you mentioned to me before our call here today that it was quite a challenging role. You had to let a lot of people go,
yeah,
right? So, and I think this is an interesting topic to talk about because often when we speak to people about, being a leader, and I coach people who want to become better leaders or who are aspiring to be leaders, and often in their mind they think about all the positive things that involves. But with that also comes the
yeah.
negative of having to let people go. So can you talk us through what happened there and how that was for you?
Sure, sure, no, absolutely. So, yeah, so this is my stint with Royal Bank of Scotland. So Royal Bank of Scotland, prestigious bank, one of the
Good.
top tier
Yeah.
banks. Unfortunately, through a series of events, with I guess the final straw on the camel's back being the acquisition of ABN AMRO during the whole crisis period, the bank went through very tough times, and they had to sort of really downsize, cut down the business, all of that. At that point, well, now the turnaround has happened. Frankly, RBS is now NatWest Group is doing well, so I'm really happy about that. But I joined at a time when the bank was going through significant, shakedown in prices, and it was kind of trying to consolidate and make the ship, make sure the ship doesn't sink. That was
Yeah.
the condition of the bank at that point of time.
Mhm.
So I still remember when I interviewed the CFO of the bank for this position, which is head of global finance services in India. So after a series of interviews, my final interview was the CFO. So he said one of his questions to me was, Ajit, do you have any experience retrenching people? So I was a little taken aback by that, but I said, look, I have in the course of my career, I have let people go, but I have not done it as a full-time job. He said,
Mm.
look, that's the job. You're going to eventually inherit a team, which is going to be 1,800 people, out of which 1,100 will be in India, about 300 in London, 250 in Edinburgh, about 300 in Poland, and a few tens, 15 here and there spread across. That 1,800 has to come down to 800 or 900 in a 3-year time frame.
Wow.
And by then, you will also possibly eventually maybe out of a job. So it is very clear that my job was to downsize, and then obviously we'll take care of you. I mean, if you do well, but look, that's the job, and that was stressful. That was stressful because look, and again, this is where even the cultural nuances are very different, right? In India, being let go, being retrenched was still considered a taboo. Maybe now it's gone. That is no longer the case, and the money in hand you get, because individuals are in the mid 20s, 27, 28 years old, or maybe early 30s, they've worked hardly 4, 5 years, or maybe 6, 7 years. When you add the package, it's not that much, right? Whereas when you have a conversation like that to someone in London, as an example, many of them are
Mm.
wanting to be retrenched, because they would have worked for 15, 20, 30 plus years, and you get a huge, nice, lump sum, which you can do what you want. And many of them eventually sometimes become a consultant and come back consulting for RVs, right? So it's a totally different paradigm. So
Yeah.
the conversations are different, and so on. But the good thing which RBS did, which I do give credit to the company, was they did it in a very nice way, to make sure that the human element is taken care of, to make sure
Mm.
people have enough time. So you're not told one fine morning that you're out of a job tomorrow. You're told, look, it's a 1 year down the line. We will make sure that we'll give you some retention carrots, whatever, to make sure you stay with us for the year. But you have 1 year to prepare for the eventual exit, which will happen. But then that 1 year is good enough. And many people, and that kind of helped me because, what I did was through my contacts, and, the only way I could take the pain away was make sure that everyone had an option or a shot at some other job interview, mostly externally, some internally. And even though, from when I left RBS, and that's when I decided to quit the corporate world and into the, music world full time. When I finally quit, we got it down from 1,800 to about 950 or something. Only 17 of them didn't have a job after redundancy. I mean,
I
redundancy
see.
package was given to everyone, but only 17 eventually. So that was, I think, a good way to take away, but it was hugely stressful. And the whole atmosphere, and then you're there, and even if you, well, however considerate you are, in having the conversation, eventually you're having a conversation with an individual saying, look, you're no longer required. May not be now, but in a year's time. And that's not an easy conversation.
No.
That took a lot out of me. And that's when I said, and when I left, the bank was nice to me. They gave me the package and so on and so forth. And I was financially in a decent position. I said, look, I'm retiring. The motto was free at 50. I was 50 years old, 50 or 7 months old at that point of time. And I said, look, I'm retiring from all of this. And my goal in life is going to be music, golf, and travel. That's when I eventually took the plunge. And then that's another story from then on. But that's where the turning point happened.
Wow. And do you ever watch that film, George Clooney, Up in the Air? Did you
Yes,
watch?
absolutely, yes. Oh, yeah, it kind of struck a bell, right? In terms of, I
Yes.
was sure he was more ruthless about it.
Well, he was kind of high. He was an external chap who came and he did it.
Correct. Yeah.
But gosh, I mean, it's like it's like when, a relationship is coming to an end, you say it's not you, it's me. But to do that over 900 people is my gosh. But I do appreciate what you said about how the human element of, and not only did the company allow that space, a year is a really quite a nice time for someone to mentally and actually in terms of career prepare for that, but also for I think the extra steps you took to help people get interviews is amazing. I think, you're such an inspiration for anyone who's out there who's having to do something like that. Because I think if leaders can lead in that way, then you have created a potential future leader who will also do the same, we hope, right?
And Rohit, it's not me personally. It's the whole team collectively coming together and saying, "Look, we should do something," and and trying to reach out with their contact connections or whatever, to either internal or external opportunities, and it all
Yeah.
worked out eventually.
Yes. And I have just one other question in terms of how you decided. So from a team of 1,800 to 900, so one in every two was basically going to lose their job. How did you, or did somebody else decide that for
No,
you?
no. This is actually this is a whole process. It is an improvement effort which included significant technology deployment, and on account of technology deployment, so it is not just doing away. There's also a combination of some jobs which are not considered to be that critical, which could have been done. Let's say you're reporting, as an example, management reporting. You're doing something and taking it to the nth degree in terms of reporting even tiny variables. You say, look, you don't need all of that. Just take it up to the high level where the senior people can look at it. If you want any deeper analysis, then you have to sort of figure out a way to do it, or we can automate it for you and figure out a way to sort of let technology help. So,
Yeah.
so that is the plan, and so it was not performance driven. So we did not. That is a normal performance consideration was the normal, the yearly cycle, etc. But the redundancies were not performance driven at all. It was driven by the activity, driven by what made sense to do when, and which of the activities could be automated if at all. And so it was driven by something else. So even if you might be an excellent performer, that irrespective of that, if your job was no longer required to be done or could be done by some other machine, then
Yes.
look, your that took away some of the pain, because frankly, when you start making it performance driven, then you say, okay, then you say bottom 5%, bottom 10%, bottom 20%. That's a ruthless. That is very demeaning, right, for people.
Yes.
Also. So,
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's like entire teams basically were made redundant. Their role was made redundant, it was not an aspersion on the individual's performance.
absolutely not.
Yeah. All right. Well, that explains to me. I mean, so it was traumatic, even though you did it as well as you could have done. And did you then already know what you were going to do? Talk to us about
Yeah,
what
so
you're doing.
yeah, absolutely. I knew. So I said, look, let me try and do something about my music. So I put a lot of attention into setting up a YouTube channel called Fusion Kaapi, which is essentially, it started off as Carnatic. See, I was good at Carnatic music, Carnatic fusion. So
Hmm.
bring Western elements into Carnatic music. So the jazz, so obviously get, your bass guitar, your lead guitar, your piano, your saxophone, plus also Indian instruments like the violin, the chenda, there's so many opportunities and there are obviously groups in India who are performing Carnatic fusion. So that is
Yes.
the intent. So I set up this channel called Fusion Kaapi, which has done frankly pretty well. We have got more than I think about 1.3 million subscribers now.
Oh my God.
And some of them have got, sorry, no, not 1.3 million. I'm sorry, 130,000 subscribers. 1.3, I'll be like, up in the clouds. So some of my songs have got a views of 1.3 million. That's a different story.
Amazing.
But yeah, so it's done well. And plus, of course, my sports passion of golf and traveling occasionally. So it freed up my whole space, uncluttered my mind.
Yes.
And that's exactly why I think the YouTube channel did well. And then COVID happened. So obviously golf extra stopped, but maybe that intensified the focus on music. So a lot of these collaborations on music happened online over Zoom calls and over, sort of telephone calls and all of that. And we, in fact, produce a lot of music, just like this, with my guitarist on the other side and I'm here and, so it's good fun, right? So instead of just, sitting and moping away, you're doing something connected with music through these tough times that
Yeah.
helps. And music is a huge, healer, as everyone knows. So, so that kind of helped. So that went on for some time. So that's what I did. But then 2.5 years later, when COVID was still going on, and then one thing led to another, and there was a consultant who reached out for a position with Wells Fargo, which was a very good job, very, very interesting because it brought two elements. Obviously I've done CFO roles and I've done global delivery of finance functions roles. This was a role combining the two. So essentially, as a CFO of Wells Fargo India Philippines, plus setting up the whole finance global delivery offshore setup in India and the Philippines and running that. I mean, so that was the job. Again, series of interviews, and then since I'd done my stint in various banks, practically everyone in Wells Fargo. So the CFO knew me because I'd worked with him in the past in JP Morgan. The international CFO knew me because I worked with him in the past in RBS. The local head of India knew me because I worked with him in the past in Deutsche Bank. So practically everyone knew me. So they knew what I brought to the table. But I still went through obviously the multiple rounds of interviews, and finally, took the job because I thought it was interesting. The money was good, and I said,
Mm.
look, come on, let me just maybe delve a little bit more back into dip my toes again into the corporate world, and that's exactly what I did
Yeah.
for 3 years, 3 months, and then eventually I called it quits a year and a half back, and now I'm full time into music. But Fusion Kaapi has now become much more than just a YouTube channel. We have now a full fledged band. We produce original music, not just Carnatic fusion, and we have had about 20 different concerts in different cities in India.
Amazing.
And we are doing, and the audience response, ranging from 25-year-olds to 85-year-olds, has universally been very good. So I'm very happy, and I'm at my creative best. We have a great team of extremely talented musicians. All of them are youngsters, so the band is doing well, and yeah, so it's going on.
Amazing. I mean, your YouTube channel is actually I mean, the quality of the videos, even in the early days when you started it, that's what sort of, really blew me away because, we all have, I mean, I have a YouTube channel, but mine is definitely very sort of, homespun. There's no, it doesn't have the professionalism and quality that yours do. So,
Yeah, but frankly, the only problem is that you have to spend a lot. So it is all negative cash flow, right? That's what I was telling you.
well, maybe you have to invest in order to kind of, build. So now I applaud you. And I think also the people you are, creating music with are all super.
So fabulous team, youngsters ranging from again 25 to maybe 38, and I'm the only 57-year-old in the whole band. But and Loy, Casey Loy, he's again 50 or mid 50s or something. Again, Maharashtra State Award-winning lyricist. He writes all the lyrics for us. Plus, he also sings a few songs. And and all the songs are original. So it's a combination of Hindi predominantly, but we also have English songs, again
Mm,
originals. And if
mhm.
you're performing in a particular state, we compose some regional songs. So, as an example, in Kerala, we compose a couple of Malayalam songs. In Maharashtra, we'll compose one or two Marathi songs. If you're doing in Gujarat, we'll do maybe a Gujarati song, all originals again. And it's like eclectic fusion, Sufi kind of music, for lack of a better word.
I love that. And of course, from there, you have also segued into acting. So to talk us through that. How did that come up?
That's another story altogether. But this is like acting was a hobby for me, frankly, and I never pursued it seriously. But anyway, that's just a passion, or that is just a hobby. So the reason I got into acting was, look, I said, look, I'm have a lot of free time. Look, the band is doing well. We've had multiple concerts, but it's a struggle. because it's a struggle getting concerts, and then the money is not like in the corporate world. And I do have a lot of free time. I said, look, and micro dramas are something which has now started picking up quite a bit. And Mumbai is the heartland of anything to do with TV or movies, right? So I went to a couple of casting companies and put my name out there, registered myself. I started getting these calls, for these, and then I went and auditioned for that. I got selected, and then that happened. I have now 5 micro dramas behind me. For those who don't know what it is, it's typically 40 to 45 episodes. Each episode is 1 minute to a minute and a half, completed in itself. It's all for the oriented for the smartphone, so it's not for a TV or a big screen theater. Smartphone oriented in a vertical format, and you keep scrolling through. So very popular in China, which is where it started, and really picked up in Korea. And in India, it's become really popular. It's getting very popular. And this channel, for which I'm acting, I've got more than 40 million subscribers.
Wow.
And some of the micro dramas I've acted in have already got more than 1 million views, 10 million views in one case. It's phenomenal, and
Yes.
I'm loving it. And the money is nothing, but it's not for the money; it's just for the pleasure. And I'm hoping maybe eventually someone might notice me, and I might get. See, the world is is an oyster, right? Just go for it. What
Absolutely. And you have to kind of put yourself out there and not
Yes,
worry too much about, how's this particular venture going to turn out. You just got to go with the flow, right?
this
That's
space, put yourself out there, be as humble as possible. Because I'm just a junior out there. I might have accomplished a lot of things in the corporate world, but in the art space, I'm just a novice, right? So you just put your ego behind, just go with the flow and hope for the best.
and that's key, isn't it? That you can't rely on your past successes to help you in this new venture. I mean, it will have taught you many things, but you don't expect other people to value you like you were valued in your previous life. Yeah. Yes. And what I have to say is that what you haven't sort of mentioned overtly, but your wife and the way that she has supported you is a key element in your success.
Oh,
Both
no,
your
absolutely, yeah.
travels all
Absolutely.
over the world. Has she kind of accompanied you on all of those?
Oh, yeah, no, no, I'm telling you, so there's no way. Yeah, so she's absolutely, and I think, much smarter than me. I think because look, she was in the U.S. when I was in Saudi Arabia, setting up in ANZ Greenleaf's Bank, and she left. She pursued a master's in pharmacokinetics, and she was working as a scientist. She quit that and then joined me in Saudi Arabia. So from the US, and I'm talking 25 years back, right? So 30 years back, the US to move to Saudi Arabia, of course, Saudi is very different now or attempting to change completely. But Saudi then is very different from what Saudi now is. So that is, I think, a huge plunge. She managed to get a job, in the American school there. So she was gainfully employed, but obviously nothing to what she was qualified to do. Then in Bahrain, she joined me there. She picked up a job. So throughout wherever we went, I think she's been following and picking up roles, either the same company or different company. So I think all credit to her. And now that I've quit, she's still working, by the way. So she's enjoying it. She's loving it. So it kind of works for us too. So eventually she'll also retire eventually, but she doesn't want to do anything like I did, and she's enjoying it. So it kind of works for us.
Beautiful. And similarly with your parents, how do they feel about what you've been doing? And they must be so proud of you.
No, no. My first decision, because when I said that I'm quitting, it took everyone by surprise, frankly.
Yes.
Obviously, I discussed Divya and all of that, but I mean, parents were saying, "Come on, and they see, for a lot of people, it takes a lot to reconcile to look. Here you're in a high-paying corporate job,
Yeah.
CFO and all of that, and in a very senior position, and the pay was extremely attractive, and leaving all of that, and then doing for what?
I want to ask you a couple of things in terms of how somebody who's listening to you, who may be in their 30s or maybe even sort of 20s, who's very creative, who loves art or music or whatever, and their heart is telling them that that's what they should be doing, but their left brain, the logical side of them is saying, well, that's not going to pay you, so you need to be doing something. How would you, given what you have experienced and where you are today, what would you say to them? What would be your, advice or guidance?
See, all I can tell you is, look, all the youngsters I'm working with, look, they have only this as a go-to, right? And I think all of them, if not most of them, if not all of them, are struggling, financially. When I say struggling, maybe struggling from my vantage point when I'm coming from this whole, all of that, but they are happy. They're extremely happy. They're able to make their ends meet and all of that, but they're not rolling in it, frankly. So I guess the first fundamental point is you have to be extremely passionate about whatever you want to do, and money is only also consideration, and money cannot be a primary consideration because you have to prepare yourself for a lot of hardship, a lot of heartburn, a lot of rejections. So if you're not prepared for that, and if you're not financially secure, and you have to believe in your talent, you have to be truly passionate because there's no two ways, there's no halfway measure out here. May not be rich, but still happy.
Yes. But I think that that money consideration is an important one because especially when you're young and you could be living a very long time, and in that phase, your creativity may or may not be relevant. You spend the first 50 plus years, focusing on the grunt work, but you made that
That is
enjoyable,
a safe thing to
didn't
do.
you?
Frankly, why I did the safe thing. But if you're a realist, and if you think, which I think most of us are,
Yes.
if you're a realist and say, look, I am talented and I want to pursue my passion, but I am also realist that I may not be able to gainfully be employed and make my, my financial needs. Then I think taking a safer approach is always good. And I do know people who are still, doing this as a passion, trying to, and now organizations in many ways encourage this. They don't have a problem because as a bank, and when I joined Wells Fargo as an example, I told them, look, I have this YouTube channel, I have this Fusion Kaapi thing. There might be some music programs coming which I might have to go. And I obviously had to reveal it and say, look, it's not conflicting with your business in any way. And I'll
Yes.
give the compliance approvals. And more often than not, companies give the approval because there's no conflict. Then I think if you can balance both, then nothing like it.
And that's absolutely, I think the message I feel people should take away is that it's never about this or that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can have this and that. And I think to your point, even though maybe the corporate work you did wasn't necessarily where your heart completely was, but you were allowing your heart an outlet. You would perform at parties, and I genuinely believe that your Fusion Cafe would not have taken off the way it did if people didn't already know the talent you had, right? And I think that's the mistake that some people do make is they think, oh my God, I'm in a corporate job now, so I can't do my music at all. I'm not gonna share it with the world because after all, it's not paying me for it. So I think that disconnecting your art with the need for it to pay for itself is a
Yeah.
key, I feel, to really enjoying it, isn't it?
It's definitely it's worked for me,
Yes.
and it's a safer approach, I think, and can work for a lot of people out there without having to put everything at risk and then say it's either this or that. So that's an option. But having said that, I do know a lot of my friends, whose kids are pursuing higher education in
Mm.
music in different
Yes.
music schools in different, in the US definitely, and in London, a couple of them. So I think my reality and the reality of many kids now might be different because my reality was my parents were very clear. They said, "Look, we will educate you to how much ever you want to get educated. After that, you're on your own." That
Mm.
message is very clear. Now, I think a lot of kids now have a much better financial support system where parents do support education. Maybe they might say, "Look, you want to pursue a career in music? Go ahead. We'll support you for some time till you make it." I mean, so that comfort factor many kids do have nowadays. So
Yeah. Yes.
maybe that's different from what was at least in my case.
Yes. So I think each person's got to weigh up, the pros and cons. But the key message that your life gives us is that you can have both,
You
but
can.
there will be a time when you are able to devote more attention and maybe give it more, of your money and time. But having that financial cushion that you created over those many, many years of corporate has enabled you to now live the life that your heart truly desires, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yes. And
Yes.
absolutely. Now I've taken up biking as a passion, so I've got these, super bikes which I, ride. Divya doesn't, she's kind of neutral to negative about it, but that's, I guess now it's fine. All a bunch of youngsters with the range of, so it's all, travel is fun, right? Connecting with people and exploring different parts of, in India and Mumbai, and then on a bike. Why not?
Yes. Beautiful. Listen, I am so happy to hear what a lovely relationship you and Divya have, because it shows on your face. You are glowing. You don't look don't look like you're in your 50s, you know. So I think that proves that you both give each other space to do what you want to do, and there's mutual support. This is kind of a big picture question, that what do you feel is missing for a lot of men of your age that stops them maybe from doing the kind of thing that you are able to do?
Oh man, people. Oh wow. See, constraints can be several, right? And again, different people's circumstances are different. In my case, it is just Divya and me. We have no kids, so there is no burden we have of, or rather, no financial obligation we have of educating our kids, so on and so forth, parents, or all of that. So that's out of the way. Both of us are working, or where at least both of us were working. Divya continues to work, and I'm still working in another profession, which is paying me nothing, but that's a different matter. But yeah, so financially, we were able to get financially secure much earlier. And I think one conscious decision we took was, look, end of the day, I might be repeating what you must already be telling a lot of people is, see, wealth can never be built by saving from your salary. Wealth can only be built by investing in something, and the investment is
Mhm.
doing well. I mean, typically, that's how wealth, and I think for us, we invested wisely in good, and some of them being real estate investments in Mumbai, so on and so forth. And yeah, it's done well. So that kind of financial stability, helped. But our circumstances unique is because we are, I would say, double income, no kids. So but what people struggle with nowadays to actually follow the passion is, look, if you're doing well in your career and you have children, and then your obviously your expenses increase, you're sending them to the best schools, and you want to send them abroad for studies, that's only going to keep spiraling the expenses. And you're in your early 40s and you have all these liabilities, including a large housing loan. You can't afford to quit, even if you want to.
Yes,
You're
yes.
kind of caught in the golden shackle, right? So I think the important thing which people can attempt to do, which is what we did, is try and get rid of your liabilities or loans as soon as possible. So whenever you get your fat bonus, instead of spending it on an expensive car or going on a huge holiday, what we try to do is get rid of our loans. If
Yes.
you're debt free, that and you have all the assets built because of all the debt you've kind of taken or loan you've taken, then obviously got rid of all those loans, then you're at peace. Then you have the walkaway power. That's, so, well, maybe you don't get to have the walkaway power then, but, at 50, I had the walkaway power from any company I'm working for, so I can do the right thing. So I think the trick is, can you get your walkaway power earlier? So the faster you get your walkaway power, the faster you can pursue your passion, is what I think.
Yes. It's such good insight, and such a powerful reminder that actually you can't create clear boundaries if you feel shackled.
Yeah.
It's like if you're shackled by your own financial anxieties, if you're shackled by other kind of, sense of misplaced loyalty, whatever, you no longer feel able to say, well, this is what I really want, and this is what I'm not willing to accept. And that then fuels the anxiety, doesn't it? And that's why so many people stay on in difficult relationships, difficult job situations. But I also, from my own experience, I would say what has helped me is to not upgrade my lifestyle every time my income went up, which I
Yeah.
find a lot of people do. Like, oh, I got a bonus, so let me buy a bigger house, or I've got a better job now, so let's upgrade to a bigger mortgage. And when you do that, you just never allow any of that excess income to work harder for you. That's great advice. Thank you so much, Ajit. Is there anything else before we finish? I mean, we could talk for ages, but I'm
No, no, no.
conscious.
I think we have, yeah, we could go on and on, but I think we have to bring this to a conclusion. But I think it was a great conversations, Rohini, and I think it took a lot of memories back for me, when we started talking about some of the acting and all of that. But and again, all you can pass on is your experiential learning, right? What you picked up through the course of your past 57 years in this world and maybe 30 years in the corporate world, what you can give back, and that's what I'm attempting to do here in this podcast. And
And of
like,
course, your music, in particular, is got sort of healing power. You know, music has sound has amazing power to heal. Any lasting sort of pearls of wisdom in terms of, you know, you, I think from the way you describe it, you are living your fulfilled life, and you know, you have consistently created a fulfilled life for yourself. Is there something still left that you'd love to do that would make you feel like, oh, that's really my idea of fulfilled life?
I have been through tough times too. So I have also been through phases, particularly during some of the RBAs, where I had to really do a lot of things, which is almost depressive, right? So I have been through tough times where, getting up in the morning, you just feel like, oh, so drained, you don't want to get out of bed. I've been there. I've been there. I think most of us have been there. I think the ability is how to get out of it as quickly as possible, because there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. And that I can tell you. And maybe the tunnel is a year long, maybe 2 years long. In some cases, it might be 3 to 5 years long. I don't know how long
Yeah,
the tunnel is. But there is a light at the end. So trust that. All of us go through good times, bad times. Many of us go through tough times. But it's how you handle, how you can come out of the downs is what will define you. And the only way to do it is to be positive. There's no other solution. I mean, that much I can tell you. I mean, you might have the toughest of issues, either financially or medically, whatever it is you're dealing with. If you stay positive, I mean, it's again a cliche term, but does work.
fantastic. Thank you so much, Ajit. Really good to have you. And I wish you all the best. And I hope you do get to 1.3 million subscribers. I'm sure that's you've just manifested it here. You know, just put it out there, and I'm sure it'll happen in due course. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.